Beginning to assemble his first staff as head coach of the Seahawks, Mike Macdonald hits a home run, hiring Leslie Frazier as assistant head coach. I'm going to be breaking it all down with an instant reaction on this bonus episode of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to all the 12s out there, as always, whether you're listening in Tacoma, Washington, or across the country in Buffalo, New York. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week and sometimes twice a day. And that's what we have here, a bonus episode of Locked On Seahawks on Blue Friday. Breaking news coming from Tom Pelissero of NFL Network and confirmed by multiple sources to the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Leslie Frazier will be joining the staff in Seattle with Mike Macdonald as the assistant head coach. This is a monumental addition to Mike Macdonald's staff. I'm going to be diving in here in a moment what Leslie Frazier brings to the Seahawks staff and why this is such a home run for the Seahawks in the Pacific Northwest. This bonus episode is going to be brought your way by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level, whether it's the 2024 Nissan Rogue, which is perfect for city drives and great escapes. It has built-in Google Maps, Google Assist, Google Play, right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. It's the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Or the 2024 Nissan Armada that'll change what you expect from a full-size SUV, a 4x4 rugged vehicle with up to 8 in seating and first-class luxury and style. You can tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, the Seahawks adding their first significant name to Mike Macdonald's staff. And as we talked about when Macdonald was announced as the Seahawks' 9th head coach in franchise history, being a first-time head coach at any level, building a quality staff will be critical for him to find immediate success in Seattle. He's off to a roaring start with Leslie Frazier announced as the assistant head coach that will be joining the staff. And for those who don't know who Leslie Frazier is, he's been in the NFL for a long time. He played for the vaunted 1985 Chicago Bears defense, unfortunately suffered a career-ending injury in their Super Bowl victory, did not play after that point. But we're talking about a guy that had 20 interceptions in just 5 NFL seasons. He was a ball hawk. He has been an arguably better coach, even though he only was a head coach for 4 years with the Vikings. His resume speaks for itself. You look at the 20 years he's been in the NFL as a coach. He started off with Andy Reid and the Eagles as a defensive backs coach for 4 years. Then he was a defensive coordinator for the Bengals for 2 seasons. He was with Tony Dungy, learned under Dungy, the Hall of Fame coach in Indianapolis, back as a defensive backs coach in 2005, 2006. Had a long run in Minnesota, was the defensive coordinator and an assistant head coach for 4 seasons. He was the actual head coach for 4 seasons in Minnesota. Unfortunately, inherited a roster with a lot of aging players, but certainly had some success on the defensive side of the football. Defensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. He was also the secondary coach in Baltimore in 2016, and then most recently had a 6-year run with the Buffalo Bills before taking this past season off from coaching. With that said, he was taking an unofficial advisory role in Baltimore, and one of the big reasons why Mike Macdonald was the defensive coordinator in Baltimore, and he was the defensive quality control coach during the one season that Leslie Frazier was on Baltimore's staff as a secondary coach in 2016. And Josina Anderson reported this earlier today when the news first broke. She actually had a phone conversation with Leslie Frazier, and he cited Macdonald as the reason that he ultimately picked the Seahawks. There were several other teams that were offering him an assistant head coaching position. 4 to be exact. He took the Seahawks job because of his relationship with Mike Macdonald, who, again, coached with him in Baltimore. He was advising him this season. as the defensive coordinator. And you're talking about a guy that's got 4 years of head coaching experience in the NFL. He's been an assistant head coach for a number of other seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. He's been in the NFL for 3 decades. This guy's been coaching for a long time. He was an NAIA coach when he first got into coaching. So he has been coaching for a long time. I can't think of a better resource to have on the sidelines for Mike Macdonald than Leslie Frazier. Again, the resume, it speaks for itself. You're talking about a coach that has 20 years of experience. He's coordinated 4 top 10 defenses as a coordinator. And I think this is the thing that always stands out. The players that I've talked to in the past that have played for Leslie Frazier, even ones that have just played against him, he is universally beloved. This guy is revered by players. He is revered by coaching peers. He is one of the more popular coaches in the National Football League. I've been surprised to this point that he hasn't gotten a second opportunity to be a head coach. Now 64 years old, that opportunity probably is no longer going to be there for him, unfortunately. But this guy has had a heck of a career coaching. Again, what kind of resource, what better resource could you have for Mike Macdonald than Leslie Frazier, a guy that has cut his teeth in a 4-3 defense, but he's coached with so many great coaches. John Harbaugh, that 1 year in Baltimore, he was with Tony Dungy on his staff. He has previously worked on Andy Reid's staff. He was with Brad Childress. I mean, this guy has been around a lot of long-time head coaches in this league, and he's cut out his own fantastic defensive resume. And again, most recently, this is where Seahawks fans need to be looking. What went down in Buffalo? Now, Sean McDermott, the head coach, defensive background, he's certainly involved in their defense there. But you got to give a lot of credit to Leslie Frazier, too. When you look at what he accomplished in 6 seasons in Buffalo, from a points per game standpoint, in 3 of his last 4 seasons in Buffalo, they finished second or better in scoring defense. The only blemish was the COVID season in 2020, where they were still middle of the pack in 16th. Passing defense, they were first twice. They were 4th another season, consistently performed well in that regard, had a couple top 10 finishes in run defense, and this is what should excite Seahawks fans. And we know that Mike Macdonald's got a pretty good track record going, creating turnovers. The Ravens were in the top 10 in the league, including number 1 overall last season in turnovers created. The Bills never finished worse than 10th in his 6 seasons as defensive coordinator in creating turnovers. And his last 3 seasons there, from 2020 to 2022, they finished 4th or better in each of those 3 seasons. So again, you are talking about a coach that comes checking off all the boxes. He has been a head coach in the NFL for more than 1 season. He was a head coach for 4 years in Minnesota. He's been a defensive coordinator for 14 seasons in the NFL. He has coached positions, including the secondary with the Baltimore Ravens. He's been an advisor. He's a former player that was a really darn good player before, unfortunately, he got injured. And he checks off the culture box, too. This is a guy that when he comes onto a coaching staff, players gravitate to him. Other coaches gravitate to learn from him. And so I can't think of a better hire for Mike Macdonald here. This, to me, is a slam dunk, adding him to the staff as that resource, as that guy that he can pick his brain when he's going through the adversity that he's undoubtedly going to face in his first year as a head coach. There's going to be challenges that he has never had to deal with before, but now he has that mentor that has been there for him since 2016, that he has a close relationship with, that clearly thinks highly of him to take this job because of Mike Macdonald's presence. Having him there is going to be a monumental boon for the Seahawks coaching staff. And now we'll see what happens from the offensive coordinator front. There have been some reports out there that Ryan Grubb, the former OC from the Washington Huskies, is going to be the offensive coordinator. We'll see if that ends up being the move that the Seahawks make. There's been a few other names that have been on the radar as well. But for now, this gives the Seahawks the flexibility to hire a somewhat unproven offensive coordinator that they believe is going to bring new ideas and maybe he's going to be able to come in and change the way that offenses function in the NFL. You may be able to take more of a gamble on offense now because you have that proven, experienced former head coach in Leslie Frazier that's now on your staff that can provide that support for Mike Macdonald. So again, I think this is, I hate throwing around the term perfect, but this is a perfect hire. This is a guy that we talked about a lot the last few weeks as a potential defensive coordinator candidate, regardless of who got the head coaching job. And for him now to be on the staff with a coach in Mike Macdonald that he has worked with previously, has advised, this is a slam dunk. It's a home run. Any sportsism that you want to use, this is a perfect hire for the Seahawks. And probably not a long-term thing, but this is a guy that can come in, and if Mike Macdonald wants to relegate play calling duties, this is a guy that certainly has done it at a high level in the past. I still don't anticipate that's going to happen. I think Macdonald is going to be the play caller, but if there was a coach you were going to hire that you could relegate that to so you could focus on your other duties as head coach, Leslie Frazier would fit the bill. At worst, he's going to be an immediate factor in their game planning during the week and in-game adjustments. And who better to have than somebody with 20 years of coaching experience at a very high level in the NFL that you can lean on in your first season as a head coach. This should be an exciting addition to Seattle staff under Mike Macdonald. As always, you can follow me on X and Threads at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to follow Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Depending on what happens with the coordinator situation, we may have another bonus episode coming up this weekend with the offensive coordinator position and other coaching vacancies on the staff. Until then, we'll see you on Monday with our mailbag and the latest on the coaching front. Go Hawks. Thanks for listening.